It's good. From the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, there's a priority that Jesus put on asking questions. A way for us to ask questions and seek the truth, to seek wisdom, to see what God really wants of us. And you can ask anybody that teaches a Bible class, and they'll tell you that questioning is learning. There's a book I found this past week which led me to this sermon, really. Martin Copenhaver. He wrote a book. In it, this book is called Jesus is the Question. He notes that Jesus himself asked 307 questions just in the 4 Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just in those 4 books. 307 questions. Now, not all of these questions are easy for us to hear. I'll remind you what some of the questions are. He said things like, why did you doubt? Why do you worry about your clothing? Do you want to get well? Where's your faith? What are you looking for? That's a question for those that end up concluding that what they're looking for, what they're yearning for, is God in their life. And then Jesus asked a couple more questions that really stick out to me. He said, what do you want me to do for you? This is a question asked by our Lord, and it's more of a servant, right? Asking, what do you want me to do for you? Remember, he said, I come to serve, not to condemn. He's washing the feet of the disciples. A servant. What do you want me to do for you? And then, another question that sticks out to me that Jesus asked, he said, do you love me? This is a question that somebody would ask if they want to be in relationship with you. Do you love me? Put your name in there. Do you love me? Your name. Simple questions are sometimes the most difficult to answer. And so it is with one of those questions Jesus asked. The question that he asked is raised with the disciples while they're with Jesus in Caesarea Philippi. Now, they had been together around crowds and crowds of people, and they had not had a time just for themselves. So finally, they've got this little quiet time, and they're talking among themselves and reflecting on what happened. And these disciples are aware of all the speculation that's going around about Jesus because he's doing all these miracles. People are wondering, who is this? And so Jesus, as he always does, he broke the silence. Who do people say I am? And this is kind of like, when you're in school and you don't want to be called on, and the disciples are looking down. They don't want, are you going to pick this one up? Or how about you? You take this question. Finally, they said, well, some people say you're John the Baptist. Others say you're Elijah. Then there's another group that says you're Jeremiah, maybe one of the prophets. Jesus follows up with another question. But who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Oh, that changes things. We got to decide. We got to make a decision. Who is he? Again, there's silence. And finally, somebody answers. Who was it? Peter. It's kind of odd that they all didn't speak up in unison. Because they'd seen the miracles, They'd seen all the things he'd done, so you would think they'd all just talk in unison, but that wasn't the way it happened. Why was it so difficult for them to give voice to the answer they already knew in their heart? It's hard sometimes. I remember the first time I told Lisa I loved her, she just went, Really? It's hard. This Easter, the most important question that you're going to answer is, who do you say Jesus is? Who is he? They killed Jesus as a heretic. The Romans killed him as a potential insurrectionist. You've heard that word a lot. Yet his followers claimed that this Jesus rose from the dead, and they worshiped him as God. And for this, these disciples were willing to go and die. Clearly, whatever you and I believe about who Jesus is has consequences. Romans 10:9 says, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. Because when you believe that, just as the disciples did, because they saw him in the flesh, but if you believe it, then you will change. Jesus knew that there needed to be a change in a person's life when they know who he really is. And I remember the time he's sitting down with Nicodemus, and he says, you got to be born again. You got to change, man. You can't go around doing all the same old things. You can't go around being who you once were. It requires us to change. When you know that you know that you know. I want to close today by telling you a story. It's about a young lady by the name of Lauren Chapin. Now, anybody my age knows who Lauren Chapin is. She was the young 8-year-old daughter on Father Knows Best. I'm dating myself, right? Well, she played the role of Kathy Anderson in the show. Robert Young was the handsome father, and he referred to Lauren Chapin on the show as Kitty, kitten. And that was because on the show she was just so innocent, so innocent. But that wasn't how her life was. After the show was canceled, we found out that